I am co-moderating with Harahana Faku Raman. She's the president of the Inter Press Services. I invite her to sit at the very left over there. We also have Professor Alexander Tura, professor of the Institute of Oceanography, University of São Paulo. Please also join next to her as well. I have also Dr. Leonardo Berenzia Perez, Director of International Partnership, Ocean Visions, and Ms. Meredith Morris, Senior Director of Strategic Philanthropy, X Prize Foundation. Welcome. And we have Ms. Caterina Laura Reyes Vegas, Founder and Executive Director, Ocean Hub. So today we are here to discuss about how we can really promote innovation, social collaboration for climate change, adaptation in the pursuit of sustainable blue economies. We've been working on ocean issues, and I was speaking at Alex, the laboratory last Monday, giving a talk about this climate change adaptations and the blue economies. So maybe I just invite Alex to kickstart the discussions as to what you see as a progress and the challenges and the international partnership we pursue for this COP30 and beyond. Farhana, can you pass one microphone behind your seat?
Dear Masanori, thank you very much for inviting me to this amazing topic and with these amazing colleagues to discuss one thing that perhaps is in the backbone of the COP of Brazil, which is participation. How we can advance in blue economy, in the conservation of the ocean, in sustainability, and even in climate actions, considering the participation of different stakeholders. And this is a very important innovation, if I may use this word, because Brazil is using and exercising this since the new constitution in 1988. Since there, participation is a very crucial, important principle and process that we need to reinforce in Brazil. One example, yesterday we launched the national strategy Ocean Without Plastics. Ocean Without Plastics, and this was built together with different stakeholders in a very powerful process with governance arrangements and processes based on participation. So it's not easy to do that because we need to have the willingness of the country, and we need to have methods and people that can create opportunities for the dialogue, like this one. We call these arenas, not to fight, but to share, to build together. And this is a thing, a principle, Masanori, that is very important for the ocean decade. The co-design, the co-production of knowledge, of actions. And here, I am witnessing a lot of initiatives that are based on this. So I think when we talk about collaboration, we need to have this in practice. And this is happening all around the world. But Brazil perhaps has a place of speech that can help other countries that are not used to that, especially in the global south, so that we can have more collaboration, more exchange, and actions that are benefiting everybody all around the world.
Okay, thank you, Alex. This co-designing is really the prerequisite step for pursuing social collaborations. Thank you indeed, and the university really definitely play an important role. So I now turn to Leo. He has been speaking about marine carbon dioxide removal as one of the steps to really provide incentives for the stakeholders to take actions to link climate and ocean. And yeah, please give us how you see this innovation and social collaborations in the pursuit of sustainable economies. Leo.
Thank you, Masanori. Thank you, Farhana, and everyone in this panel today. So together with my role at Ocean Visions, I'm also director of the Global Ecosystem for Ocean Solutions at the UN Ocean Decade. And the big challenges, as you mentioned, marine carbon dioxide removal, that's one piece of a very large uh, puzzle that we're trying to figure out, which is carbon removals at scale. So we know by now, and I think we're getting to a much more solid consensus about how inescapable carbon removals are at this point, and the scale of this effort, and the fact that to remain under 2 degrees by the end of the century, we need a level of investment, mobilization of resources, and a scale of action that is really hard to commiserate at this point. So how we are approaching this issue, which is pretty large, is through collaboration, in part, through the understanding that this is not a capricious effort, that it's necessary, it requires very solid science, and that we need to, in many ways, learn by doing, as it is a completely new phenomenon. So the way we are approaching this through the UN Ocean Decade is that we need to increase science collaboration, we need to increase the development of scientific infrastructure around the world, because monitoring will be an inescapable component of this work, and just getting governments to understand their role in this issue. Right now, it has been, for the most part, a matter for the private sector to try to have a go at it. But we are at the point that it needs to mature, and in order to mature, it will require very clear signals from the public sector, and also efforts to de-risk research activities, because that's really where we are now, and we will not get out of this problem of not having those solutions and relying on those kind of imaginary solutions at this point. We will not get anywhere close if we don't de-risk and we don't create more trust in this sector.
So there are lots of the issues that still need to clarify, and for that, government, private sector partnerships indeed very essential. I now pass the microphone to Farhana to invite two other colleagues.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, before I pose the question, I would like to say a little bit about my organization. So IPS Interpress Service, I don't know if some of you are familiar with it, but I can assure you a whole lot of people out there on development issues are very familiar with IPS Interpress Service. It's a 60 plus years organization reporting on reporting and analyzing. We are bringing news and views from the global south. So we do have a very important role, and we would like to be able to amplify, what you are working on. There is one question that I'll come back to you about, because we talked a little bit about that. But in the meantime, Catalina, if we can ask you, if you can tell us what are the major constraints, actions and achievements, challenges in tackling climate change and promoting sustainable blue economies. What is your suggested future path or roadmap or partnerships?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Catalina Reyes, I'm Colombian, and I'm addressing the policy and science interface in my country with a Latin American scope for us to act as a bloc and for us to truly prioritize these kind of things in a very local and intelligent way, or in a more intelligent way that we have been used to. We, Colombia, are the only country in South America that does have both coasts, the Pacific and the Caribbean region. And of course, we do have certain different ecosystems, but also different and very culturally diverse traditional peoples and communities there. And we also face that they, mostly Afro-descendant and indigenous communities at both coasts, happen to be the most poor people in the country. So it's all about, racism sometimes, it's all about economic inequality, it's all about infrastructure, it's all about poverty, it's about sanitation, it's about almost all of the challenges that are being addressed throughout the 17 SDGs. So when it comes to blue economy, we do prioritize not only talking about scientific research. As a scientist myself, of course, I truly believe we will be able to address and to understand what are the major steps that we need to follow through in order to achieve this kind of not only SDGs but also national plans with a very strong normativity as we have in Colombia, but also to address all the organizational challenges inside of the regions that we are working at. But also we need to address this kind of socioeconomic challenges and the historical challenges that Colombia is actually one of the most important places to have everything in mind, to have everything figured out in order to truly create a strong and resilient, sustainable blue economy. So again, when it comes to blue economy, we have been facing things like traditional points of view that only see the seas or the ocean as productivity source when you are relying too much, or where you are relying too much for fisheries, for certain very traditional linkages and activities, but not as a source of prosperity. And that's why we're stepping up in Colombia to not only see it as a source for research, for data, for certain ideas that are happening around the global north, probably and mostly as MCDR, but also as a source of innovation, as a source of prosperity, as a source of many other things that the continental parts and the traditional points of view, the traditional conservation points of view in Colombia will have been covering throughout the years. So for us, it's very key to focus on 3 pillars, and that's why we are working with Oceanico Labs, formerly known as the Ocean Hub Colombia, which is endorsed by the UN Ocean Decade, and we work closely with the GEOS program at Ocean Visions as well, to focus on 3 different things. First, to make all this information, this complex information, easier for communities to understand not only the challenges and the state of art of the conversation, but also what are the possibilities and their own capabilities to get engaged with national, regional, and global discussions. So for them to not being manipulated sometimes by certain projects and certain organizations that always come up with great and brilliant solutions that would open up certain prosperity pathways, but they do not truly understand what they need, why they would know what they would want, etc., etc. The second one, and that's why we talk about governance so much. The second one is a push, a direct push for ocean climate literacy, which is very important for recruiting more people into blue economy and to actually make them know that this is a perfect way to professionalize climate action and to actually make them understand that if you are truly into climate action, into blue economies, into, I don't know, ocean protection, and so on and so forth, it would be a great opportunity for them to also become a professional in that field and to actually bring more resources to this conversation. And the third one is, of course, innovation. We truly believe on the capabilities and the talent that we already have here in Latin America, but also in Colombia, that is absolutely unexplored. And if we probably scaffold that talent and those conversations, we would be having a great cluster of innovation and possibly great enterprises, great startups that would be stepping up at the international level. So those are the 3 things we're focusing on in order to create a climate positive and regenerative blue economy from now on. And of course, relying on the potency of having 2 oceans and beautiful people that are absolutely organized and they want to, make things happen. That's the perception I've been having throughout the years by working with those communities.
Thank you, Catalina. Thank you for elaborating, so clearly. one of the things that we journalists always like is plain language, because we have to understand. You know, you have so much knowledge, so much expertise. We have it in a different way, and we really need plain language presentation from your side so we can multiply these messages outside, externally. Meredith, okay? Tell us what, in your view, are the key points to promote sustainable engagements, overcoming interest conflicts, securing finance, and any other conditions required to achieve targets for tackling climate change and promoting sustainable blue economies.
Right. There are a number of different things in there that we need to do, so I'll try to figure out the ones that I can tackle succinctly. Thank you so much for having me here, Masanori. Grateful to be here with all of you, and every one of you said something that got me really inspired and made me think I want to talk about something else. So, Meredith Morris, I lead the portfolio around energy, climate, and nature for an organization called X Prize. We are a 30-year-old incentivized prize model that sets a bar for a change we want to see in the world and incentivizes innovators to reach that bar or exceed it. We do not honor and celebrate work that's already being done. There's people that do that, and that is wonderful. But what we're trying to do is really catalyze systemic change. So the first prize was our founder wanted to launch commercial space travel. So the technology that came from that ended up going into Virgin Galactic and has supported that effort. So we have prizes across health, education, nature, energy, food, water waste, space still. And I'll talk a little bit about two areas that we're seeing opportunity and challenge, and that's in investment and awareness. And I think all of you mentioned that in different ways. So we're a nonprofit, but this is not philanthropy. We believe in philanthropy, but we also believe that it has to create value. And at the end of investing in doing something like protecting nature or addressing climate change, there should be viable businesses and industries at the other side of that. So in April, we announced our largest prize we've ever given away. That was $100 million towards removing carbon. Half of the teams that participated in that prize did not exist in 2021 when it got launched. We did it because we wanted to start an industry. So that's an example of how it's not only tackling carbon, but it's also looking at what it means for investment opportunities in businesses. The grand prize winner of that, we gave $50 million to one organization that was removing carbon from gravel and rocks in India, which was also going back and actually supporting farmers as well. The other piece of that is we're already thinking through what is the next market opportunity, and that's methane. So we're creating a methane prize. Methane is 90%, traps 90% more heat than carbon does. We talk about it in a way that we're going to try to change the temperature of our climate and stop warming or reverse it. In our lifetime, we can do it if we address methane. But that an industry doesn't exist for that now. So we're aiming to launch a prize that's going to address that. One other example, but in a different way, is actually around coral reefs. So they're going extinct. By 2050, we won't have many of them unless we have an intervention that's very serious right now. Pockets of things are happening, but it's not happening quick enough. It's not happening at scale. It's not happening affordable enough. And we want to launch a prize around restoring and regenerating coral. And on the other side of it, it should mean new jobs, new industries, new opportunities for coastal economies. The other piece that's very important is awareness. So we all know how important all these things are. I have spent a lot of my time in rooms talking about ocean with Masanori in really amazing parts of the world. And we walk in the room and it's like, oh, hey, friend, good to see you again. It's the same folks. And it's wonderful to see your friends, and it's wonderful to develop partnerships amongst people that you care about and know, but we need new people in the room, and we need to build more awareness. So one of the prizes that we're working on launching is around actually a Youth Climate Action Prize. So imagine if we were to incentivize youth from all over the world to take action to address climate change in a very measurable way throughout a period of time, global collaboration, et cetera, with this idea that at the other end, the measurements on this will not only be, what these youth end up doing with their lives, starting businesses, going into politics, developing technology, but lower GHG emissions, policy change, more biodiversity. So investment and awareness are both challenges and opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. And I think this engagement with new stakeholders is really one of the challenges. And we've been discussing oceans at Ocean Pavilion. We came out to the SDGs pavilion just to reach out all the colleagues who are involved in the SDGs in a more holistic ways. And in our Sustainable Peace Foundations, we really look at this ocean and climate in integral ways with the biodiversity and also the illegal fishing eliminations. And the question is how we can really reverse that vicious trend. And one of the challenges is that this CO water is warming up. And in the region like Pacific or Atlantic, there's a projection that we will lose fish catch by 2040 or 2050. And for that, we really need to reverse all of these vicious cycles. And we also look at lots of impact, negative impact on the coastal areas, island communities. And one of the questions is how we can really resolve this conflict of interest between the different stakeholders. Fishermen have one interest, energy people have other interests, and it's really a challenge as to how we can really find a common platform where we can really find a mutual benefit. And I just wanted to ask Katarina how you approach this stakeholder issues who have different interests, but we need a kind of common platform for them to address mutually beneficial solutions. Farhana, can you pass the microphone? Farhana, microphone.
Well, the short answer is by finding as the more unexpected partnerships as possible. So we don't want to focus on the same folks that have been wandering around and focusing on ocean and marine issues for their entire lives, but to actually open up conversations with unexpected partners. So when it comes to Colombia, of course, we actually have several conversations with fishermen, with coastal communities, with the research and the research institutions towards biodiversity and marine stuff, and of course the Ministry of Environment and all those typical stakeholders that come up in the conversation whenever we touch base on this kind of debates. But we are truly focusing on opening up that stage to those people that are also, or that are always or typically known or perceived as first, not relevant to the conversation, or second, even enemies to this discussion. So for example, we truly need to talk with the industry. We really need to talk with certain departments at certain universities that are not familiarized with blue economy, that are not familiarized with the ocean climate nexus, to the basis of the carbon cycle or the calcium cycle when it comes to, for example, this kind of developments and stuff. And the second thing is, of course, we are bringing up this conversation of the necessity of developing this kind of, part of the economy with or within the framework of economic growth. How do we achieve these things in order for the country and for communities to not only be sustainable, for not only them to have enough food and protein, but also for them to be prosperous and for them to actually breach the socioeconomic gap that is huge in Colombia, that is huger in the coastal regions, and also to amplify this, or to diversify better, to diversify the GDP in Colombia, to not be so reliant on fossil fuels, so reliant on agriculture, and so reliant on those economies that are truly impactful, not only for the environment, but also for social causes. And I want to remind, like Colombia is considered the best place to actually defend the environment. So we need to really understand all those problems at the same time and to bring up the ocean as the source of solutions, because it's not just part of the solution, it's the source of almost all the solutions, and we need to, get back to the ocean. We need to really become an oceanic potency, as it's called in several documents of policy in Colombia.
Okay, thank you, Katerina. Yeah, it's very important to really engage stakeholders in the multiple ways, and we really have to work toward it. So, Meredith, I want to turn to you as well, that Ocean X it has been really making very impressive interventions. And the question is, of course, we need to look at the big players, but at the same time, we also need to look at people who are having difficulties and who are really in need of some external assistance in finding solutions. So I'm just wondering how you approach these gaps between those who already have developed the capacity to access the funding and the technology, and those who are in need of such funding and technical assistance, but still slightly away from that avenue. And this Ocean X, how do you look at this inequity or the engagement of key stakeholders, particularly from probably developing countries or island countries in the context of this ocean management and the climate change adaptation?
So at X Prize, we have coalitions of partners that come in to not only shape the prizes, but also fund the prizes that have a strong hand in being able to shape them, as well as the entrepreneurs, innovators who apply for the prizes, and then the folks that are closest to the impact on the ground of what this technology is going to bring. So across all of those different sections, we have, the philanthropic, ultra high net worth, we have major philanthropies, we have companies, we have universities, we have nonprofits that help us find applicants, we have the communities that open up their doors to us. One of the prizes that we're highlighting this week is a Rainforest Species Detection Prize, where we had teams from all over the world be able to use technology to be able to find, detect, and track and monitor species in an exponentially more quick way than we have in the past. We did our semifinals testing in Singapore and partner with the government there, but we did our finals testing down in Amazonas. And what I think was really interesting about this was, this is using eDNA and sensors and some really, really high technology. But all of the teams that made it to the finals and the winning team all had an indigenous team member on their teams that helped to guide them based on their knowledge of these animals. And one story that I think is really interesting is that originally, you can't just pop into the tribe and say, hey, will you work with us? You have to gain trust. And we had this AI named Taina that we were asking the tribe to kind of relay information to, and they were a bit annoyed with it because they said, well, they didn't trust it. They didn't trust that this information was going to be used properly, and the AI was not supposed to repeat to any other tribal member what someone else had said. And one day, the tribal head comes in and he's like, Taina's been gossiping. She told someone else what I told her. And we're like, okay, so we had to go in and adjust it. And he said it with a chuckle, but it was kind of, you had to work through those things of gaining trust and helping them understand the value of what this could mean for them. So one of the tribal members went into the city, went to Sao Paulo to a museum, and there was something from her tribe there that she was trying to understand more about, and she couldn't find it. And so she came home, she asked Taina, and Taina was able to tell her. And so finally there was a little bit of a click of like, oh, okay, you're not just extracting things from me, but you're also able to share something with me. And so I think when we think about prizes and how we shape them and how we engage people, it's about figuring out kind of what the shared value is, making sure we bring them along, and also making sure that we invest in gaining trust.
Amazing, thank you. We're just exchanging. I have it here on my. Thank you so much. I think it's absolutely remarkable, some of the things that you're doing. Leo, how do you react to that? I mean, Catalina, what she has said, and Meredith. I mean, what would you like to bring forth, or even show as examples?
Well, first, the challenge is very real in terms of all these scales and like all these even cultural differences or approaches, understanding of science and technology. And yeah, I'm trying to go for a good example, but I would say that something that right now for us is super important is just to like break through this understanding that in the world of solutions, everything is, or in the world of like climate solutions, everything is either or. So where you have to make a choice, choices are very ideologized in terms of, say, like one thing that we face very often is this distinction between nature-based solutions and the others, like where technology is involved. In a world where nature-based solutions are increasingly more kind of using a technology base, and all sources of knowledge and all sources of basically innovation is just drawing from so many places. So I think in terms of collaboration opportunities, in terms of where challenges are, and where I would say the story lies today, because we are seeing this in every country, in every conversation. We are in a moment where we need to slowly walk through this problem of trust and this problem of different, I would say, tribes in the scientific community, to understand that we are not in a moment where we need to halt science and we need to stop efforts to understand, for example, what we can do as temporary solutions for some of these problems while we figure out the larger issue of warming and the larger issue of, say, chemical impacts in the ocean through acidification. There are so many things in kind of adaptation level, for example, that don't quite fit there, and we will need to be very flexible to understand how we can, for example, we work on understanding potential options to slow down the crisis of the Arctic. So how it could be possible to repair some marine ecosystems in the Arctic so that we are not completely lost during the summer. So we can just get some of the albedo effect of the Arctic in place. And we don't know if they will necessarily work, but we're also understanding that the more we advance these options, there are also local adaptation opportunities for transportation and other sorts of support for communities in there. And these kind of middle ground opportunities are becoming, as a potential practice, a way to bridge us into going in at larger scale. So that is where I think many stories are emerging as how this very large-scale thinking could help us go through some of these other sustainable development goals and opportunities to, say, deal with wastewater, which is a massive issue, and how like dealing with wastewater could be a way to bridge into larger solutions for carbon dioxide removal. So that's the type of thinking right now.
Thank you. Over to Alex, let's hear you. And one of the things I would really like to hear from you also, and for everybody else, is what you're doing about the young journalists, that you're trying to train up, because one of the ways that the only way, I think, to create more awareness is actually skills building of young people, and how they're able to understand and report on these issues. So we would like to hear from you on that.
Thank you. Curiously, yesterday in the evening, I moderated a panel with film producers, documentarists, people that know how to tell stories in different ways, bringing knowledge, bringing information, bringing emotion, bringing stories for people, telling about from their place of speech what that represents to them, like fishermen that lives in our coasts. When they approach a politician, they tell a story which is a true story, and we need to find the ways to communicate and to share these stories all around. So and to do that, we need to have to have clarity about which message we want to deliver, because this has different outcomes. This has a political influence. This has an influence on the way people behave. And this has to do also with the way we share and we communicate science. In Brazil, we have a laboratory of scientific journalism in a state university in my state, São Paulo State, which is led by a dear friend of mine, which is building capacity for more than 20 years of young journalists to talk about science, to talk about the ocean, to talk about several things. The UNESCO chair is a hub, and it's trying to make such links. And we created a program named Ressoa Oceano, which means resonates the ocean. And then we are putting together different stakeholders, and this comes back to SDG 17, which is my favorite one. I like 14 for sure, but 17 is very important because it has to do with this type of collaboration. And then we joined a group in Brazil named BORI, BORI, and this is a group that connects journalists with media, with the journals. And sorry, it connects scientists with journalists and journals. And they have a list of more than 3,000 journalists slash media institutions. And then we find ways without having to do again what they did. We have the possibility to reach a lot of people. But the point is that what are the messages? What the messages we need to spread? Because we are not allowed to spread several messages because people will be overwhelmed. And then for me, one of the most important messages from this conference is that this is the COP of action, of participation, and of the ocean. Why? Because if we say that there is an intrincable, I don't know if this word is well said, it's intrincable link between ocean and climate, if we say that in a declaration, this is a very powerful message to be captured and make donors, philanthropics, research councils, governments to invest money not only in entrepreneurs, startups, but also on science behind the innovation, because we have science behind innovation and behind blue economy. And this is very important. We need to support science. You know, just a final figure. In the world, the amount of money invested in ocean science is 1.7% of everything that's invested in science. Compare this with the size of the ocean. In Brazil, I say that we are a miracle because we invest 60 times less than the global average, and we are in the top 10. So we need to invest more, invest better, and in our countries, in the Latin America, keep supporting public universities because this is the backbone of the science we can do in our reality.
Excellent. Thank you.
Masa, I just
Alex.
want to make one comment.
Okay, yeah.
Do I have your permission?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I really want to take this opportunity to encourage, because that's one way that you can raise awareness, and I think awareness is crucially important. Just the way you said, you know, the investment is so low, it is because there hasn't been enough information sharing outside. And as I said, in this plain language for people to understand. So I invite each one of you to consider providing IPS Interpress service, which is www.ipsnews.net if you want to visit. Please provide us with opinion editorials that come from you, your views, and they can be from different angles, you know, each time. We have rather impressive readership. We have language services, so where required, you know, we can even have that in Portuguese or something else. But do please consider that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an excellent idea that we can definitely get in touch with Farhana, and each of you can make contributions to her news services. And from the discussion here this morning, I've been taking a kind of messages that definitely information sharing is one of the bases for building a mutual trust of stakeholders. and that is really fundamental for promoting partnership activities. And yeah, as Alex mentions, ocean is the least funded SDGs component, and that really has to reverse. And as we in Belém, where river, Amazon, and ocean all meets, I think this should give us change makers to bring more attention to the ocean and ocean nexus with climate change or biodiversities. And I think this is one of the messages that I would like to disseminate. We have some more minutes left, and I just wonder if any of you in the audience side have any comments or questions. Or otherwise, I just ask each one of you to say a short message that you'd like to disseminate from SDGs pavilions to COP30 and beyond. Maybe any questions, right? Yeah. Maybe we go from here, Katarina, and then Meredith. Okay.
Just a final comment?
Just 1 minute.
One final comment I would say is Latin America has almost all of the opportunities, potential, and resources to scale up innovation when it comes to the ocean climate nexus, blue economies. And the second one would be we truly need to go back to the ocean because, you know, basically there's no Amazon, there's no highlands, there's no wetlands, there's almost no ecosystem of the world that do not depend on the ocean. So we need to put it at the center of the conversation, and we need to push more and more collaboration for Latin America to act as a bloc in this discussion and to scale up things and to make things happen.
Okay, thank you, Meredith.
Yeah, I would say, I think, you know, I've been pretty deep in focusing on all things coral for the past year, and it's like really depressing. I think that any of you that work in the ocean space, it can be super depressing, and I'm not even one of the people down there watching it, you know, slowly die, or in some cases quickly die. I'm in an office trying to raise money to save it. So immense respect for the people that are really under there doing the work on the ground. But I think aiming to kind of remain curious and be pleasantly surprised. Masanori and I were in Nice at UNOC, and I was on a research boat and talking about coral, and they said that someone from the U.S. Environmental Task Force in President Trump's office was going to come on and talk to us about coral. And everybody was like, about coral? And he comes on, and it's this gentleman named Ed Russo, and he's been working for President Trump for 25 years, and he is from the Florida Keys, and he is obsessed with saving coral reefs. And he's on the board of this reef organization that also empowers youth, and I mean, he is fired up about it. And he's been really helpful to me as I've been trying to raise money for coral, which is really, really hard to raise because a lot of people have just given up on it. They don't think it's a worthy investment. And, you know, we don't agree on everything, but he's been a good advisor and a supporter, and I would not have thought to look in that direction. There's going to be some interesting things happening about ocean policy that we're hearing coming out of the Trump White House potentially. So I would say remaining curious and hopeful, and allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised.
Okay, Leo?
He does very few interviews and very few speaking engagements. He is a roll up your sleeves, do the work. So, but you could try.
Is that you know, mainstream media will pick up headline news, breaking news, but nobody will do the analysis. We do that. Nobody will do the analysis. Nobody will bring out what the real issues are on a consistent basis. You can do one news item about COP. There are lots of news items, you know, about demonstrations and whatnot that is happening on, you know, you see it on BBC, CNN, elsewhere, but none of them have done what we have been doing with the presence of our journalists here, covering in-depth talking to individuals, to experts, trying to understand. So that's something that we would like to use your good offices to try to convince him so that we can interview him. Okay?
I wish he did more interviews because I think more people need to know. But I'll certainly try to help.
So going into balance, I think right now, as we are crossing tipping points, which is no achievement, but it's a very scary thing that's happening across the Earth system, Earth systems, we are faced with this problem of how do we have a comprehensive take on these challenges, how we can bring like the wealth of research that we have and fill the gap towards solutions around these problems, because we are treating them as very different problems. So one is like the issue, the impact, and then how we are approaching it. In many cases, it's like we keep monitoring and we keep doing the same that we have been doing for many years that is not working, and everything is accelerating, and we are crossing tipping points, like coral reefs right now, like the loss of coral reefs. And yeah, we definitely need to increase coherence across policies. We are getting to a point that protecting biodiversity and climate action are very intertwined, and we cannot treat them as different issues. So I think my message would be we need to think about comparative risk assessment. And comparative risk assessment is not a trivial matter. So understanding what are we going to lose and what we are willing to do to prevent those losses, even if they are not going to be perfect solutions. So I think it could be something a little bit dark, but I think at the same time is where most of the hope is right now. So that would be my message.
Alex?
Thank you, Mazanori. I think we have to think about today, in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term. I would like to talk in the long term. After the UN 2030 agenda, what will you have after this? I think if we do two things, we will have a better chance to keep going, keep pushing towards a sustainable ocean. First, we need to have the ocean strengthened in the multilateral discussions. This means G20. We checked that the box last year in Brazil. We put the ocean in G20. And now South Africa is keep going with the ocean. And we hope our dear friend Hama will keep going with this in US next year. In US. So it's important that we capture the importance of the ocean in these multilateral meetings. That's why I said this is the COP of the ocean, and we need to talk about it. We need to say clearly, strongly, because if we that are the ocean community, we do not say that because it's true. It's true that the ocean is there. Look, all the side events, we have the pavilion. Look, when you see the tools, the action agenda, we have a dedicated item to the ocean. We have the ocean breakthroughs. We have the ocean package. It's a mouth of money dedicated to invest in actions. We are in a different position. And if we have that, because the ocean is everywhere, and it should be everywhere, it should be forever. So that in the agenda post-2030, we need to figure out where the ocean will be and how the ocean will be, and we need to build it now so that we have this type of support. This is the first thing. And the second thing is based on my dear friend Vitor that is there, are the youth. It's related to the youth, capacity building, inspiring, giving the floor. A young man doing so many amazing things in terms of publishing, in terms of delivering messages. So I think this is a very important thing, and because this keeps inspiring us as a feedback. So I think these are two important things that we need to secure, to reinforce, to strengthen.
Excellent, Alex. Yeah, we listened to you about this startup support to empower your students and to be an entrepreneur for addressing ocean climate nexus. And it would be nice to hear, Farhana, then, how you have found today's discussions. And definitely, we really value this credible, fair, objective news disseminations. I think it's now getting very, very difficult to find such a news coming out of traditional medias. And yeah, Farhana, please give us your observation and comment.
Thank you, thank you. You know, when you're with a distinguished panel like this, it could really be information overload. It could be information overload in half an hour, 45 minutes. You know, we get a lot. Yesterday, we were at a meeting, and we heard Kumi Naidu. And one of the things he said, which struck some of us very much, is that there's a lot of talk about, oh, the earth is going to disappear, those oceans are going to disappear, everything's... No, he said we, human beings, are going to disappear. And this little bit, if you allow me to use the word twist, this little twist is very important to understand, because it will be human beings who will disappear. The rest will remain, perhaps dilapidated, but that will remain, So that's something to consider. And as I was mentioning that we would really very much like to be in a position to support dissemination of information a little bit more. A lot of times, one of our biggest strengths, and I'm very proud of it, and Joyce Chimby is here, our senior journalist from APS, and I say this very proudly, that we are an organization which is over 65 years old. I can take no credit for the wonderful brand that it is. We have UN observer status, etc., etc. And I think everybody in development familiar with news outlets, etc., like us very much. Our stories are all done by developing country journalists. And who knows best the local conditions? Not me. I don't know the local conditions in Brazil. I mean, I'm sure you don't know the local conditions as much as a Bangladeshi would in Bangladesh. So our journalists are all out there. They know the best what is impacting them and their families and communities. And the other thing that we are very proud of is more than 65% of our writers over the past 4 years, 5 years, we are well past 65%. And I'm really very, very pleased about that. And one of the things that we believe in is that when you give opportunities, if you don't give opportunities, if people don't come and participate and interact with Meredith, with Catalina, with Leo, and with you, the learning process is quite difficult. But that interaction is that's the first step to communication, the personal interaction, learning from you and taking it further. So we would like your support as much as we would like to support you. And as I said, maybe after this we'll exchange our contacts. I would definitely love your help, to interview somebody who is close to the Trump administration, and everybody else, if you come forward with your views, with experts who have views, and let them come forward with opinion editorials. And opinion editorials are yours. We are not formulating your opinion. You are giving us that opinion, which we are then disseminating in order to influence policy and decision makers. So absolutely wonderful for me, to be. Thank you very much for inviting me, to be part of this panel. So over to you for the final wrap up.
All right, thank you, Farhana, and everyone. And I really see your enthusiasms. And one thing, I've been really trying to figure out is how we can really deal with the trade-off. I think many people want to do something more climate, but also want to make sure that the ocean will not be negatively affected. People want to go for a particular type of energy, but that may have adverse impact on other ecosystems. So this kind of trade-off, we really have to have a proper information. Science is important, and news is important. We have to engage the stakeholders. We want all the people winners, not to create winners and losers, but at the same time, we cannot necessarily make everybody happy. There may be some pros and cons, and there have to be some sacrifice. So that is the kind of decisions we may probably have to make. in the coming years or even right now. And Sasaka Peace Foundation's Ocean Policy Research Institute would like to be very credible, science-based, multi-stakeholder-driven policy drivers for sustainability and the climate and nurture actions. And I really thank you all for your very enthusiastic and inspirational remarks. And thank you for the audience for staying with us. Can you join me in giving a big round of applause to all the panelists? Thank you very much. So photograph,
I
please.
already sent your contacts and asked my colleague to translate.